I call to order the regular city council meeting for Monday, March 20th, 2023 at 5:30 PM. Let's jump to item 1 on the agenda, and that's roll call.
Burlingame.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Janser.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Pittner.
Here.
Pachgula.
Here.
Ross.
Here. Moving on to item number 2, we do have special guests here tonight to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and that are the members of Boy Scout Troop 425. If you want to step forward, they're here working on a merit badge. Go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Way to take charge, guys. Thank you. Moving on to the mayor's report, item number 3.1 is a proclamation. City of Minot proclaims March 20th to 26th as World Fest Week. Whereas the City of Minot recognizes the importance of cultural exchange as a means to enrich and improve the lives of its citizens, and whereas the Minot Area Council of the Arts has been recognized and chosen as the North Dakota host of World Fest by Arts Midwest for the 2022 to 2025 cycle, and whereas music is considered a universal language allowing people of differing cultures and backgrounds to share experiences, and whereas the City of Minot recognizes the efforts of the Minot Area Council of the Arts and Arts Midwest to provide unique experiences from a diverse group of international performing artists, and whereas the City of Minot wishes to express excitement and enthusiasm for the forthcoming visit and residency of the Okra Playground and the Electro Folk Band joining us all the way from Finland, and to welcome the 7 members of their group to the Magic City. Now, therefore, I, Tom Ross, Mayor of the City of Minot, do hereby proclaim March 20th to the 26th, 2023, as World Fest Week in the City of Minot, and urge all of its citizens to participate in the varied, free, and public performances presented by the Minot Area Council of the Arts and the Okra Playground. Signed by myself and Michaela. So, Justin, do you want to come up and grab this, or wait till afterwards? And just wrapping up the mayor's report, they did have a few meetings since our last city council meeting. We had the Chamber EDC board meeting, a couple of one-on-ones with the city manager, some flood control testimony down in Bismarck last week, some legislative meetings, the MPO directors meeting, Task Force 21 meeting, and met a couple times with some downtown businesses. And to kind of wrap it up, we had the Prairie Warrior auction last Thursday to help raise funds for our friends on the Minot Air Force Base. Any questions? If none, we will move on to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just a couple of things real quick. First of all, I do highlight this in the city manager report, but I do want to start with a positive here that we finally filled our NDR program manager position. And so Chris Plank has been hired and will start on April 10th. We look forward to training him and getting him geared up to be an expert for us with all things NDR and CDBG and HUD funding. And it's been a long haul trying to find someone to fill that position, and glad to finally have that done. In addition, we have had a couple of notifications of changes amongst our employees here over the last couple of weeks. And so the first one being is that Janet Anderson, our library director, has submitted her resignation to her board. And I just wanted to publicly thank her for time well served in the library. And I know that the quality of our library will continue here into the foreseeable future thanks to her efforts and her diligent work in that area. Also, late last week, received the notice of retirement of our Public Works Director, Dan Jonason. And so that'll happen September 1st, so we have quite a while to thank Mr. Jonason for the 17 years of service he's provided our community. But more importantly, there will probably be some significant discussion between myself and the council and staff on what's the best way to move forward with that department and organization going forward, and anticipate probably next month and through the budget process of having some significant conversation about that with the council. With that, I'd open up for any questions the council may have on the memo that I prepared, and then once that's done, I do have one other item for the council.
Any questions? Carrie?
So Harold, this has been our first snow event with the private contractors for the city sidewalks. Can you tell us how that went?
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind, I'll bring our future retiree, Mr. Dan Jonason, to come up and
He's even walking
address
like
that.
a retiree now. Strolling along.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we had I guess the contracts approved last Monday. We got them out to the contractors. Schultz Property Management had their stuff back to us on Thursday. They started removing on the kind of the citywide, the larger portion of it. I believe they have just about all done, but they got a delayed start. We had to get the contract information together. Birdie's hydro mulching, I believe, finished getting his contract information into us Friday. So we will have him ready for the next event. The sidewalks under his contract, some of the specific areas, around the parking ramps, Broadway, 3rd Street, our crew started on that and them cleaned up. So we didn't utilize them for this event, but we will be utilizing them for future events. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And as always, your streets department did a great and rapid, response in the snow event. It always is amazing how quickly we get back to normal after a snow event. So I know the crews are working hard from the first snowflake. So thank you, as always, for that work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor, just one more thing, and that is through the annual cycle of processes with regards to the city, we're back to the beginning of the assessor's process. And so last week, some letters went out to some of our residential owners, particularly if the assessor's office had determined an increase larger than 10%, you would have gotten a letter in accordance with state law. And then this week, I believe some of the commercial letters will be going out. So since we're at the beginning of that process, I just thought it'd be good to have a good kind of brief educational process, and asked Mr. Damon Drews from our assessor's office to come forward and speak about that briefly for the public on why they may or may be getting a letter in the mail from the city's assessor's office. And after him, I have no further presentations to the council.
Thanks for tonight. So Mayor and council members, last week, like City Manager said, we sent out a little over 2,000 letters to residential property owners whose value went up more than 10%. Today I dropped another 900 letters in the mail for the commercial owners. So that would be your fourplexes, multifamilies, and then commercial property. So state guidelines require us to send a letter out a minimum of 15 days prior to the local board meeting for anybody's value that goes up 10% and $3,000 or more. 2023 assessments are based on what the market activity was in 2022 calendar year. These increases in value could be from a variety of things. Most likely are a remodel of a property, new construction, or just market activity in the area. We were down in the areas around Longfellow School, Bel Air, and Arrowhead Mall this summer. So if anybody down there has got an increase, they can certainly give us a call. We obviously can't get into all the properties, so we do the best we can when we don't get into everything that we try to. 2022 seems to be another strong year in the real estate market in Minot, and also around what we're seeing around North Dakota also. If anyone has questions about their 2023 assessment, we encourage them to contact our office and we'll speak with them. And if needed, we can go out and take a look at their property. The City Board of Equalization is April 11th at 5:30, and the County Board of Equalization will be at June 6th at 1 p.m. Any questions I can answer today?
Any questions? Steve?
Yeah, could you remind all of us as to what the state law says about assessments and how they have to follow the actual value of the property? I think sometimes people feel that we, or you, I guess, and your assessors are deliberately trying to extort, maybe is a strong word, but money out of the citizenry and unfairly tax them for their property. I think if you could remind us of what you're required to do by state law.
Yep, so the State Tax Department and the guidelines provided by them require us to value property at market value. So now we all know that that is probably pretty tough to do, and we've got a large number of properties. I think Minet's got close to 18,000 properties in town. So they do give us a little bit of a leeway and require us to be between 90 and 100% of market value. And we report all of our sales to the state, and they do a study on us yearly.
So we're required to assess people for what their property really is worth, not what we think it is or hope it would be worth or what they might think it's worth.
Correct, based on what the market is doing for that year.
And again, just to be on the super cynical side, you and your staff and we don't get any cut on this. If you assess a property at higher value, you don't get a portion of that higher assessment.
No,
Okay, so it's all on the up and up.
correct.
Thank you.
Anything else, Steve? Steve?
No, thank
Anything
you.
else? Okay, anything? Thank you. Let's move on to item number 5 on the agenda, and that's a public hearing. Public hearing, M101 Renaissance Zone application by Fifth Avenue Investments LLC. Now is the time, if you wish to, it's a public hearing, if you wish to speak in favor of or against the Renaissance Zone application, now is your time. Is there anyone for or against? If not, what are the wishes of the council? Mark?
Mr. Mayor, I move we close the public hearing and approve the item.
Second.
Mark makes a motion to close. Paul seconds. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Pajagula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to item number 6 on the agenda, and that is the consider the report of the Planning Commission. Item 6.1 is a public hearing, zoning map amendment, Highlands at North Hill, 7th edition. Now is the time, if you wish, the public hearing is open. If you wish to speak in favor of or against the zoning map amendment, now is your time to speak. Is there anyone wishing to speak? If not, what are the wishes of the council? Paul?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing and approve the item with recommendations from staff.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Pajagula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 6.2. It is a public hearing zoning map amendment, Lot 2, Northern Heights Edition. Public hearing is now open for anyone wishing to speak for or against the zoning map amendment. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak? If not, what are the wishes of the council? Paul,
Mr. Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing and approve the item with recommendation of staff.
is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Pajagula.
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Item 6.3 on the Planning Commission's recommendation list. It's a public hearing, zoning map amendment, Lot 2 of the Norheim Heights. Oh, no, I'm sorry, portion of Norton's addition. I was reading the line above. This public hearing is now open for anyone wishing to speak for or against the zoning map amendment for 6.3. Anyone? If not, what are the wishes of the council? Mark?
I move we close the public hearing and approve the item.
Is there a second? Second by Paul. Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Quadrigula.
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Moving on to item 7 on the agenda. That is the consent items. We have 21 items. We have been requested to pull item 7.2, number 3. Is there anything else that needs to be pulled? Anything else that needs to be pulled? If not, what are the wishes of the council?
Move approval on the remaining items.
Second.
Motion by Lisa, second by Paul. Any discussion? There's no discussion. Please call the roll.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Quadrigula.
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser.
Yes.
Moving on to ordinance. Ordinances 7.2, 7.23. Alderman Pittner has asked this one to be pulled. Paul?
Thank you, Mayor. I just asked this to be pulled as an informational piece, just to bring some attention to this item. This was a grant specifically in relation to the 13-acre parcel that'll be acquired through flood protection, the old railroad yard office, GOB, north of the railroad tracks, north of downtown, southeast of Sammy's Pizza. I've talked with some individuals over at Parks. I know this will be brought up at their meeting tomorrow. This is just kind of a PSA, if you will, to get the community notified of this, get them excited about this. This is an opportunity with some federal grant dollars. We actually didn't get this grant to begin with, but the community that was awarded this grant wasn't able to use it. So we are runners-up. And so again, this is going to be done in conjunction, I think, with a lot of community partners, specifically the parks, just to get people excited about what that parcel can be. More than a park, more than what it is now, and really activate some of the silver linings of all these properties that are being acquired through flood protection. We don't like to see them go away, but if we're going to have that space, I think it's best if we use it and activate it for the public. So again, just wanted to bring attention to this. This is an exciting, I think, opportunity to get some concept designs done with some collaboration of all the community partners in the federal government. So, thank you.
Mark?
I'd move the item.
We have a
Second.
motion by Mark, second by Paul. Any further discussion? Anything? Call the roll, please.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Quadrigula.
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Paging through to item 8 on the agenda, that's the action items. 8.1 is a public hearing, special use permit for additional animals requested. Now is the time, the public hearing is open, now is the time for you to speak in favor of or against. And we got Chief Klug coming to the mic.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I just want to make sure that you understand what this, what I have written in my memo. This initially came with 10 animals total. 6 of those were personal and 4 of those were basically pass-through fosters that would constantly be changing. So I spoke to the applicant and informed her that I would push through the 6 animals that were her personal animals, and the other ones lacked enough any information to really approve. They don't, but I also look at it as a temporary animal. At most, it would be passing through on the way to adoption, so doesn't really count toward her animals at her house. If that would change in the future, or a neighbor would complain, we could investigate that and determine if she's violating the ordinance and keeping them for a long period of time. But I don't anticipate that with this property owner.
Mark?
Okay, just to clarify the clarification, if I may. So how many animals are we approving for this residence to have on site if we approve it? Total animals?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Janser, 6.
Okay.
Any other questions? Scott?
Chief Klug, so if let's say that there was a seventh animal that they established that they were going to keep for longer, how long of a period of time would not be temporary, and how long does the process take to get the next animal in front of us?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Alderman Burlingame, there's not an established time frame, but if they do establish another animal, I just explained to the property owner that they could submit another permit to try to get that animal approved as well. But at that time, at least they would have the information available for you to consider. One of the considerations in the ordinance is the breed of the animal, and that's not available on foster animals until they have them.
Mark?
So is it the intention of this individual, do you think, to have additional foster animals, like at a level to 10? Is that what is contemplated?
Yep. Mr. Mayor, Alderman Janser, the proposal was that she would have up to 10 animals, 4 of those being foster animals. And when I spoke to her, she told me that she currently had 2 foster, I think they were both cats, that actually pushed her to 8, but she doesn't know how long she'll have them. So it just makes it very difficult to approve a permit for unknown animals. So that's why I kept it at your animals. We'll approve the 6 that are yours. And you could definitely approve 10 with 4 of them being unknown. For me, it's difficult to put that proposal in front of you and recommend it.
I have clarification.
Carrie?
So this is a 501c3. This is the Animal Empowerment League. This is not like just some random person. Casey is a trained animal rescuer. This is the holding sort of place for the animals temporarily that are overflow from other areas. So the additional 4 animals are sometimes even just overnight animals until she finds other foster homes for them. So that is why they're considered temporary.
Okay, any further questions of Chief? Thanks, Chief.
So I would move to approve the special use permit.
I'm going to make one more call for public
Oh,
comment.
sorry.
Any further comments, either for or against? If not, what are the wishes of the council? Carrie,
Move to approve the special use permit.
I have a motion by Carrie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Paul. Any discussion? Any further discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson? Yes. Pittner?
Yes.
Quadrigula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 8.2, Bel Air in Washington Safe Routes to School Project. Reject bid 4577. What are the wishes of the council?
I'd move the approval of the staff recommendation to reject the bids.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve staff recommendation, and we have Mr. Meyer here at the podium.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I wanted to provide you some additional information that came a little bit later than when we had to have memos due. So we bid this project through the DOT on March 3rd. Keller Paving and Landscaping was the apparent low bidder. Their bid came in at 1.87 million. Our estimate was 1.6 million, so we're about 16.5% higher than what our estimate was. During that time period from then until last Thursday, the DOT was reviewing that bid for compliance with the civil rights that are required for all of our DOT projects. Keller Paving did not meet the disadvantaged business enterprise requirements that were in the contract, so therefore DOT had to reject their bid. That left us with the bid from Strata Corporation, which was just a hair under 2.2 million, or 36.6% over our estimate. Their bid is still under review at DOT. However, I think the best course of action for the city, because of these high bids, is to reject all bids. So in the memo that I have for you, it was just rejecting Keller's. I think as the city, we should reject all bids. So we modify that recommendation. And the reason being is when you look at the bid prices compared to what we're seeing on other city projects, this bid is just way out of scope. And our city cost share goes up to $418,000, up from $325,000, which is what we were projecting before. It's not a big increase, but at the same time, these costs are probably just too much. What we think is a better course of action is we will actually bid this project in the October bid letting, and then we will construct the project in 2024. So we have to wait another year to build it, but when we checked around with some of the contractors that would bid a project like this, by the time it got to the DOT bid opening on the 3rd, they're already full. And so I think we're missing a really good bidding pool. It allows the contractor that got rejected to fix the issues that they had in their bid so they could take another crack at it. And I think in the long run, we get an overall better price for the city. So that'd be my recommendation to you. Alternatively, you could award to Strata Corporation. And of course, that had to be pending the DOT's review of their DBE requirements as well.
Any questions of Lance? Anyone care? Steve?
Could you give us a really brief, non-bureaucratic explanation of where the apparent low bid got into trouble?
On this bid, they're required to have a race goal of 10%.
A what goal?
10% race goal. So as part of a federal contract, the DOT sets a race target. So they want contractors that can meet certain goals, whether it's a women-owned business, it might be owned by a minority, or they have enough employees that are minorities to qualify under this. And those targets were not met. So they don't comply with what the statutes are, so they have to be rejected.
I mean, is it because this company is systematically excluding minorities, or is it because the demographics that just can't find those people here?
It's neither. What you have to do is you have to make a good faith effort. So there's lists of contractors or subconsultants that may be eligible to qualify for a DBE. So you have to demonstrate through documentation that you at least contacted these businesses, or if their bid is within a certain percentage of the next lowest bids, then you have to take that. The other opportunity to come in front of the DOT management and plead their case, however, DOT said that they can't accept that bid.
So is it the problem with them or their subcontractors if they use any?
I would say it's with them.
So they just didn't make it on this list of preferred providers in a sense?
Right.
Wow. And we're not aware of any discriminatory behavior, any attempts to exclude certain groups of people from working?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think they needed more paperwork, is really what it was.
I'm not sure which is worse. That's too bad. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions? No, thanks, Lance. Oh,
My
Lisa.
question is not for Lance, it's
Oh,
for.
go ahead. Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome.
We're good.
Just a clarification on the motion. I think the motion listed is just rejecting Keller Paving's bid, but city engineer is saying reject all bids, so is that what the motion is?
I would clarify it that my motion would be to reject all bids.
Is it okay with the second?
Second agrees.
Second agrees.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, for the clarification. Is there any further discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Janser,
Yes?
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 8.3, Magic Fund Grant to Souris Basin Planning Council to fund the Business Accelerator Fund. What are the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Lisa, second by Paul. Is there any discussion? I know we have Mark from the Chamber EDC and member from Souris Basin, I believe, who wants to address. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the Minot City Council, my name is Mark Lyman. I'm the Economic Development Specialist for the Minot Area Chamber EDC. As you know, the Minot Area Chamber EDC is contracted by the city to review Magic Fund applications. Souris Basin Planning Council is requesting an additional $805,300 investment into an existing program, the Business Accelerator Fund, or BAF. The BAF is used as the regional match program for the Bank of North Dakota FlexPace program. Souris Basin Planning Council anticipates using these funds over the next year. Our recommendation and the recommendation of the Minot Area Chamber EDC Board is to support this Magic Fund request at the $805,300 level. The Magic Fund guidelines state on page 2 under general purpose information that, quote, no more than 10% of available funds in the Magic Fund account as of January 1st of each year may be used during the calendar year for RLF, or Revolving Loan Fund, capitalization. Souris Basin Planning Council's request represents 10% of the available funds as of January 1, 2023. Our support for this recommendation per the guidelines does not preclude the Souris Basin Planning Council from returning with a Magic Fund request for additional capitalization in future years. As a matter of fact, they've done that a couple times already over the last few years with great success. And the use of Magic Funds for a revolving loan fund toward matching or community source FlexPace loan buy-downs has proven very successful by the Souris Basin Planning Council. And at this time, as Mr. Mayor, as you mentioned, Brizelda Hernandez is here with some comments from Souris Basin Planning Council as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Brizelda. I'm the Executive Director for Souris Basin Planning Council. And I realize in your packet you have a memo and the agreement, but my apologies, I did not send just a two-pager handout. It was included in the original Magic Fund application, but you might not have that in your possession. So if I can hand it, and then if we can add it to the minutes, if that's okay? Okay, thank you. So as Mark mentioned, we've been here before multiple times, but I know that we have new members, and so I'll just provide a brief overview of the Business Accelerator Fund program. We established a program in 2019 because we realized that our 7-county region, most of our communities do not have a program established to provide the community match required for the Bank of North Dakota FlexPace and PACE programs, and Minot was included in that list. And so Souris Basin Planning Council, with the partnership of the City of Minot through the Magic Fund, established that program for that sole purpose, to provide the community match. In front of you, you will see an overview of the funds that you have invested into the program, that $1.78 million. Out of the $1.78 million, roughly $1.65 has been allocated, and the remaining amounts, we anticipate allocating that this month. We do have a committee meeting later this month to review projects. Hence why we are here asking for an additional investment into the program. And so you will see in that we've approved 35 projects, with the majority of them being in Minot. That's 30 out of the 35. And roughly 13 of those projects has been in downtown Minot, and it's been geared towards redevelopment, property redevelopment, or the startup of new or expanding businesses. And so just wanted to give that note that, as Mark had mentioned, we feel like this program has been very successful, not only for the City of Minot, but for our region as well. The back page, we wanted to highlight the Bank of North Dakota's investment over the last several years. You will see that since we launched this program, Bank of North Dakota's investment into our region, specifically the City of Minot, which is this only includes the city of Minot, has drastically increased since the launch of the Business Accelerator Fund program. That investment is through a participation loan that they have with the lead lender, and then also the interest that they buy down from the loan. So we're very proud to highlight that it's been a great success, and we've gotten a lot of support from our stakeholders, including the Bank of North Dakota. And so we anticipate allocating the request this year and hopefully coming and being encouraged to come next year for an additional investment into the program. One thing I do want to highlight, the reason that we're here in front of you asking for additional funding is that for during the interest buy-down period, we do not receive principal nor interest payments. So funds will not begin to revolve until 2024. And only a portion of the funds will begin to revolve then. So we do anticipate coming back next year for hopefully just one more investment. And by that point, we will see that revolving phase come through. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Steve?
Just a quick question. I'm curious why the amount is such an odd number, 805,300. Why isn't it just 800,000?
Just the 10%. We'll get any investment that we can get for this program. So essentially how we would work the projects is this is how much we have available. This is the maximum that we could allocate to the community match portion. So
Okay.
it's just the 10% of the balance.
Any other, Scott?
Hey, Briselda, nice to see you here. So you said there was 35 total projects approved. Any projects that weren't approved?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Burlingame, no.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add that our guidelines follow the Bank of North Dakota guidelines. So it's essentially reviewed by the bank. It's reviewed by the Bank of North Dakota. And at that point, when they engage us in a conversation, it's already been heavily vetted. And so if it qualifies for Bank of North Dakota, our committee sees this as a great benefit. What's typically negotiated is the interest buy-down period. And it really depends on the project and then also how much we have available in the program.
So how do people find out about this? If I want to start up Scotch Widget Shop in downtown Minot, how would I find out about this program?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Burlingame, all of the information is on our website, but typically because a lead lender has to be involved in the project, your lead lender has to apply to the Bank of North Dakota, and that is when they typically engage us into the conversation. So you do, as a business or individual, have to have a lead lender to be eligible for the Bank of North Dakota Flex PACE or PACE program.
I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Paul?
No question, just comment, I guess. But again, I just want to thank the Service Basin Planning Council for seeing this project through, picking it up, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was now. Time flies, and again, to be persistent, coming back for funds, and I look forward to when we have to stop giving you guys money and the program supports itself. I say that tongue in cheek, but again, I think this is also great for the community. I want to again pat everybody on the back that sits up on the dais that we were one of the last communities in North Dakota of the major communities to actually take advantage of this program, which is a shame, but no use in crying over spilt milk. We didn't get on it till late, and now we are. We're seeing the investment into our community. We're seeing investment to the surrounding communities. So again, this is a big win for Minot and the surrounding area, and I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. And again, good job, everyone.
Thank you, Paul. Harold?
Just a point of a refresher, so for the public and for the council, I'm sure the council remembers this. So when this was applied for last year, their original request was $2 million. And given that 10% restriction, that was what generated the $780,000 that was approved last year. This year, that 10% represents the $805,300. So if you add those together, that's $1,585,300, which leaves a remaining balance of $414,700 in their potential next year's request to meet that $2 million commitment that council discussed last year, assuming that request stays the same. So I just wanted to point that out and help connect the dots a little bit.
Thank you, Harold. Lisa?
Yeah, thank you. So just as a point of transparency, I know this question had come up last year on whether or not the city of Minot had anyone on the Service Basin Planning Council Executive Board, and I do represent the members of this dais on that board. And I'll say, when the initial application came through, I needed to be convinced. I wasn't sure that this was a wise use of money, and I've quickly learned that it's a great investment. It's so exciting to attend the meetings and see the applications that come through and see the businesses that are opening up. It is a win-win for Minot and the area, because we know that we're putting people to work. We know that we're collecting more sales tax dollars through these investments. So I assume that we will approve it this evening. I certainly hope that we do, and kudos to Service Basin Planning Council.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If nothing else, please call the roll.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Pajagula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 8.4, alcohol licensing, Duck Pond Ventures LLC. What are the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Paul, second by Carrie. Is there any discussion?
No, I just appreciate the, perseverance of, John and Duck Pond in hearing why the concerns that the police chief had and many of us had up here, and really going back and figuring out a way to address those concerns and in a quick and efficient way. And I still think we need some reworking of the overall ordinances, but I will be happy to support this transfer tonight.
Anything else? Paul?
Again, I just want to echo Carrie's comments. I'll start with staff of working through maybe some hurdles last meeting that we had with this issue, and to the applicant of seeing that through and working with staff to come to a resolution. Again, I agree with Carrie. I think there's work yet to be done, but again, we've been identified a problem, I think, and something that could use some refinement, and we will see that through and be even more open for business than we already are. So.
Yep. Thank you, Paul. Anything else? Harold?
Just a quick question for clarification for staff purposes. So at the last council meeting, when we discussed this, there was a directive from the council to have some alternatives prepared for the April 17th council meeting with regards to this issue. And I just want to clarify that with the resolution here, is that still an expectation of the council to be prepared for that meeting with some recommendations regarding this issue? Or does this resolve that and we talk about this more in a more comprehensive review of liquor licenses as we move forward with that conversation? So just asking for clarification from council with regards to expectations of the motion that was approved at the last council meeting.
Paul?
I can speak to that, I think, a little bit, and if anybody else wants to chime in, my thought would be that I think we found a resolution for this particular issue. We take more of a comprehensive view, like was stated in the city manager report. We've talked with attorneys from Grand Forks, and we will go down that route. And again, I think this will just lend itself as an example of some of the things that we try to clarify. So I don't feel personally that I need any recommendations or any further explanation on this item for that meeting.
Are we all in agreement?
Agreed, yeah.
There's your direction. Okay, if there's nothing further, please call the roll.
Pittner?
Yes.
Pajagula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 9, which is personal appearances. Now is the time, your opportunity to come and speak to the council on any issue that you may have.
Mayor Ross, members of the council, I am Justin Anderson, Executive Director of the Minot Area Council of the Arts. I wanted to come today personally to thank you, first of all, for the proclamation supporting World Fest and our activities this week. We do have several public events that are free to attend, and I hope that yourselves, as well as anybody in the room and anybody listening online, may wish to attend. Wednesday evening at Northwest Arts Center at 6:30, we have a welcome reception. On Saturday evening at the Carnegie Center, we have an Artist After Hours event featuring Ochre Playground, our musicians from Finland who are joining us this week at 7 o'clock. And then on Sunday at Anne Nicole Nelson Hall at MSU at 4 o'clock is a full concert by this really wonderful band that's joining us for the week and sharing their experiences and their culture with members of the community as well as schools across the area. And as a last note, if I may approach the dais, I have invites for these activities for all of you at the table.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council? Please step forward.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for having us here. My name is Roger Hilly. I represent a group called Trails for Transplants. Just a courtesy visit to the city. We'll be in your town from June 1st through June 3rd of this year. We're doing our annual ride. We've ridden our horses 2,500 miles through 4 states, and this year we're riding from Mohall to Minot. Our mission is just to raise awareness for the need of organ donors and to encourage folks to register to be donors. North Dakota is one of the highest in the states with a 53% amount of people that are registered to be donors. We're not asking for anything specific. We want you to know that we're coming. If there's anything we can do for the city while we're here in Mohall, we're going to stop at their Senior Citizen Center on our ride through and sing them a few songs and welcome them. But I don't know that I have anything else. Bill, do you have anything?
You're kind of giving it all up here.
Any questions of us at all?
Carrie.
So people are free to join the ride if they want with their horses? Is that-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then the schedule is in here, so they would just on June 2nd, it looks like you're leaving the fairgrounds. That's where they would meet you? Or,
Yes.
okay.
Council person.
And we probably
Evans.
will have places for you, events, so stay tuned. We'll get a hold of you, I'm sure. I know somebody's mind is already turning down there for
Well,
senior citizens.
I hope so, and if there's any questions or anything, I mean, our telephone numbers are on there, and you can certainly contact us, but I know we'll have, some participation from the local 4-H clubs, and, we've got folks my age, old people, and we've got young folks as well, and Mayor, I'd like to say that makes me comfortable here that my hairdo isn't out of style.
I don't have a comeback for that.
Wasn't looking for one.
And Roger, will the opportunity for people who are interested, who aren't signed up to be organ donors, will that be available? Like how people can go to your Facebook page, so if somebody's like, I really think it's time I sign up.
Anyone who would like to sign up to be a donor will help them to
Okay.
the right spot.
there. Okay.
To the right spot, but we won't, we don't have that authority to do that.
Right. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Anthony Barrett. I'm the owner of the Drop Zone. I'm sure you have all heard of me in the last couple days. I guess I'm just up here. I wanted to see if I can get some more clarification on why the event that I had planned was canceled. As per the ordinance, I did speak to the company that was going to do the performance. They said they were going to act within the ordinance, but I was called directly and told if I were to go through with it, I'd be considered not in compliance with the ordinance and steps would be taken. So did we get any clarification on why it was I was basically told I had to cancel this event, and it was now moved to Velva.
I would have the police chief address that. Chief Klug, do you think you could answer that? Or Stephanie? Or both?
Mr. Mayor, council members, yeah, there was some discussion about the legislative intent, so that it kind of went back and forth between how the ordinance reads, and then just try and get clarification of what the council at the time this was passed. So it took some time to actually find out what the legislative intent behind it was. And the initial information that we shared with Anthony was that we didn't think the business, on March 2nd, there was an email sent to him, and we advised him we didn't think this fit within our ordinance and that it would not be allowed. As this came forward, we started to review what the ordinance says, how to interpret it, and we thought there was some room in there that it could fit within the ordinance. Then after we learned of the legislative intent, which basically said there's no sexual-oriented businesses or performances allowed at all unless you're in industrial zone, that's where we changed that information back and advised him that he should not go forward with that performance. So it kind of transitioned back and forth a little bit, but there was about a 2-hour window from the time that he was advised that he could do the performance until I believe the mayor advised him that he could not do the performance. So it was a very short window.
As I recall too, there was, maybe Stephanie, you want to talk about this, the section 543 issues as well, when there was more looking into the event and the interactiveness of the event.
Yes, Mayor, Alderwoman Evans, and Chief and Anthony, there is a section in our liquor ordinance, the section 5-43, that states that nudity, semi-nudity, and sexually explicit acts are prohibited in a licensed premises. And it lists several body parts that must remain covered and acts that cannot be simulated on a licensed establishment. And it's our understanding that this could be concerning with the event that you were going to host at the drop zone.
Sorry, I don't know how to do this. Mr. Mayor, council, people. And I completely understand that. That's why I actually spoke to the company, sent them a copy of the ordinance, said, this is what we're, dealing with. Can you still perform this? They said they've worked in areas that have had very similar ordinances, and they were able to completely work within the ordinance. I conveyed that when I spoke to the people that were calling me from the city. I said, I've talked to them. They said they know how to do this. They work all across the country in a number of different cities. They were in Bismarck last night. They were going to be here tonight, they're in Bismarck tonight, sorry. They were going to be at my bar tomorrow night. Now they're going to be in Velva. So, I mean, they're still in North Dakota. They're still within 20, 30 miles of the city because a lot of other places understand what they're doing and know that, yes, you can still do this. The other part of that as well is, I called 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks ago, asking if there was any type of special permit I needed. And that's when it was first brought up. I was told initially it might not be a good idea. Then I was told I could go. And then, as the chief said, 2 hours later, after I was putting out more advertising, then I was called and told I couldn't do it. And that was on Friday, and the event was supposed to be tomorrow. So there was a lot of money, a lot of advertising that was already put into it that I now just sort of have to eat. So it's just kind of one of those things too. And I understand with certain ordinances in there, we are not a sexually explicit business. This was an event that we were having. We're normally just a bar and nightclub. So I don't believe we fit into the certain areas of the ordinance. The one that you brought up, those areas, that were in there, they were all to remain covered as per the ordinance. And if you look at the bottom of that section, it actually says at least number 1 excludes males. So a male can be shirtless during a performance, according to the ordinance. So as I said, I believe we were going to be within the ordinance, and then for some reason, without actually seeing the event or seeing any versions of the event, I was told I couldn't have it. Probably lost at least $5,000 in initial revenue, and then tens of thousands throughout the year because of more, advertising that was going to be for my business. So kind of a big hit for me.
Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
And Mayor, Alderwoman Evans, and Anthony, then that segues over to our sexually oriented business statute. And as Chief Klug indicated, we did have to do some research, and we have to do that and also balance our other duties and responsibilities at the 11th hour when events like these come up that aren't initially brought forward to us before they're booked, and then we have to scramble at the last minute to try to determine what was intended when these ordinances were passed. So we did an initial pass over it, and my understanding is we thought perhaps this could work, and then we've received information from past council members when they passed this indicating that that was absolutely not what they intended. And so at this juncture, our advice is that we have to remain within the direction of past councils, what they intended by this. And if this council wants to examine this and reconsider it, decide whether or not this is still a good fit for our community, this council can do that.
So again, going to the website of Girls Night Out, I mean, there is explicit tickets, like the kickers were the lap dancing, right, which is in clear, not violation of the sexually explicit, but the touching, caressing, and that includes buttocks. So that was problematic. And, like, we all know what a lap dance is. And then also, like, one of the big things that Girls Night Out really tries to underscore is the interactiveness of the experience. And so those were, it wasn't, like we said, if it had been just, and without the interaction part, I think we could have, found space in our ordinances for it. But because of those additional components, that just really, came right in collision with the 543.
Anything further?
Okay, well then, as mayor, council people, I think I understood when the ordinances were put in place initially, we were driving out all the strip clubs. And I mean, that's exactly what it was. And that's not what I was trying to have come back in. It was simply a show. It was performers doing what I would consider art. So I don't know how that falls in because it is a show. It is a choreographed event. Probably fits more under art than anything else. So it's kind of why I had, some concerns about it. But I completely understand you guys were going with your best guess of what this was going to be. The only thing I could say is it would have been nice to maybe have it, you guys see it, make the determination, oh, hey, no, that is not okay. We can't do that ever again. And I would have been completely fine with that. But there was a lot of money and effort and time put into this to literally 4 days before it was supposed to happen, I had to cancel. There's a lot of people on social media very angry, saying a lot of stuff about how they feel about this and the city making these decisions and stuff like that. So I will respectfully, I understand, can't be done. I just wanted a little more clarification on it. And hopefully, maybe in the future, the ordinances can be re-looked at so that possibly just shows events like this are okay as long as we're not bringing what we didn't want in Minot that you guys got rid of back in like 2010 time.
No, and I think that discussion, has started, right? Is, these one-time shows and things like, is that really what, we want to prohibit? So if anything came of it, it's, just a reflection of if these ordinances are still consistent with, what we want and need in our community.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Mayor, City Council, I appreciate the time up here.
Thank you, Chief.
I just have one last comment, Mr. Mayor, council members. So the email that was sent to Anthony back on March 2nd said, your request was passed on Chief Klug from Michaela. Per Chief Klug, you are not able to obtain a license or a permit for this show. City ordinance only allows these for businesses located in District Zone M2, which is heavy industrial. And a copy of the ordinance was attached. The next day, on March 3rd, Anthony called Lieutenant Chapman, who's the one that coordinates our liquor licensing, and he's the one that informed him that 5-43 is also an ordinance that should apply because of the discussion, and ticket sales went on. This is another case of a business. This was already going on, we were informed of it going on, then we give an advice, and the business comes back and says it's the ordinance issue. I just would publicly say, if you're planning on doing business that may be in question, please contact us first so we don't have to deny something and shut it down. We can tell you if it fits or not. So that's the last comment I would make.
Is there anything else to be brought to the council? Now's your time.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Can you guys hear me okay? I sound kind of quiet. Okay. My name is Bailey Saltzman. I emailed you a few months back to discuss changing the city ordinance to allow backyard chickens. A few questions were responded back to me, so I wanted to address those. Fargo started allowing backyard chickens in 2017, Mandan in 2019. So most of the stuff I did research on was how things have gone after they allowed it. And after looking at their ordinances, I would like to suggest allowing 4 hens, no roosters, as are not needed to produce eggs. The chicken coop and run must be at least 20 feet from a neighbor's house and 5 feet from the property line. Chickens will be included in the 10 per limit, or pet household limit. Chickens must remain in the coop and run at all times unless they're in a fenced yard or fenced garden under supervision by the homeowner. So far, I've tried to promote this with the change.org petition. I know it's not official, just kind of wanted to get the word out of trying to change it. It's currently at 257 signatures. I've tried to look as many of people up on Facebook as I could to verify that, it said Minot resident, and the majority were. So some of the concerns were noise. Noise a hen makes is between 60 and 70 decibels, which is around what a normal human conversation is. They're loudest when a predator is near when laying an egg inside their coop. A robin is 61 decibels, and a dog's bark ranges between 90 and 110. Chickens go into their coop at sundown, and they stay there until the sun is up. In 2019, in a radio interview with the mighty 790 KFGO in Fargo, City Auditor Steve Sprague was talking with the host regarding how many permits had been given out in the first 2 years, and he made the comment that his personal experience with chickens was that his neighbor had had them for 2 months and he didn't even know about it. Disease was the main one that people have been talking about. I spoke to Ethan Andrus, a veterinarian for the North Dakota Department of Agriculture, and asked him for any stats regarding the avian flu from 2015 to 2022 to see if there had been a rise in cases since they allowed him in 2017. He stated that there were 2 commercial flocks in Cass County affected in 2015, no backyard cases statewide, and there had not been a case of the highly pathogenic avian flu in Fargo until 2022, when there were 2 cases of the flu in Cass County, both in backyard flocks outside of Fargo. He stated that in 2022, there was a low level of flock immunity, so it was an exceptional year, and this year he anticipates a lower risk. He said the avian flu requires contact between domestic birds and the infected wild birds or the contaminated material from wild birds. Prevention is best accomplished when preventing backyard birds from coming into contact with wild birds, especially waterfowl. So by taking the right precautions to protect the chickens, like keeping them in their coop, having a covered run, keeping it clean, and watching the health of the chickens, the risk is very low. Human infection is also very rare. The first case was in 2022 in Colorado. According to the USDA website, which was updated this morning, there has been no avian flu cases in North Dakota in the past 3 months. Salmonella was another worry. For North Dakota, in cases where salmonella was connected to poultry, the cases have risen a little bit over the years. There were 2 in 2017, 0 in 2018, and then 2021 had 8, 12 in 2022. I've been trying to get in contact with someone at the Department of Health to find out how many of these end up in the hospital, if they could tell me if they were, backyard hens versus larger commercial flocks, and I haven't heard back from them. So the risk of salmonella is not 0, but it is slim. In 2022, there were 225 hospitalizations and 2 deaths from salmonella connected to backyard poultry. It is estimated that there were 26,500 hospitalizations and 420 deaths from salmonella poisoning from all salmonella. So only 0.85% of hospitalizations and 0.47% of deaths were connected to backyard poultry. A few other common pets the humans can get salmonella from, which is interesting: turtles, hedgehogs, bearded dragons, guinea pigs, and hamsters. And of course, we also get salmonella from contaminated food that is purchased from grocery stores. Small risk, but it happens. In the last few years, we've had outbreaks from lettuce, peanut butter, fish, sprouts, onions, salami sticks, peaches, ground beef, and ground turkey. So in regards to disease, if COVID has taught us anything, it's to pay more attention to personal hygiene and wash our hands. Animal control issues and, adding more work to already full shelters. In 2017, a lady named Sarah Bloom tried to change the city ordinance. In Minot, she made calls to larger cities. There was Omaha, Billings, and Sioux City. Their comments were few and far between, not many calls at all, or I can't remember the last time we had a call. I contacted Fargo, spoke to Michelle Draxton, and stated that the calls regarding chickens was very low, maybe a handful a year, mainly about a loose chicken or someone making sure their neighbor's coop was in compliance. It was the same in Mandan. I neglected to get the animal control officer's name, but she stated they hardly ever get calls regarding chickens. I also called Fargo and Mandan animal shelters to ask if they'd had many people surrender their chickens or had them brought in by animal control. Fargo has only had 2 grown chickens and a couple chicks, and Mandan has never once had a chicken brought in. So I don't believe it would be an issue or more work put on our animal control officers or shelters. If someone no longer wants their chickens, I have been told that they go pretty quickly when put on Facebook or Mandan. And I've asked around, and I have a list of 6 chicken owners that live outside in Minot or in other towns that would be willing to take chickens if no one wanted them, or if a hen happened to be a rooster. And most of them said they also know others who would be willing to take them. One lady brought up that her concern with chickens they would bring in more predators, namely coyotes, because we do have them around. I spoke to Bill Haas at the Fargo, North Dakota Game and Fish, and in Fargo, and Allegra at the Mandan, North Dakota Game and Fish. Both said that since allowing chickens, there has been no increase in coyote calls or sightings. Allegra and Mandan also reached out to another department and confirmed there has not been any extra destruction or signs of coyotes trying to get into coops. I also don't think if we allowed it that we'd suddenly get a whole bunch of people having chickens in their yards. In Fargo, they only had 17 active permits last year, with 28 the year before that. Mandan averages around 15 permits each year. I'm sure there are people that don't get permits when they should, but even if that number was doubled, in Fargo, that's only 50 to 60 homes in Fargo that have chickens. We can give support to local businesses like feed stores, mills, pet stores, or handymen to help build the coops. Their manure is excellent fertilizer. Chicken manure is sold on Amazon and in other stores. It can go into compost piles, not end up in the landfill like dogs and cats waste. And if we let our chickens roam in our garden, they are great bug control, which means less chemical insect being sprayed. One chicken eats roughly 1.6 pounds of chicken scraps per week. With 4 chickens, that's 332 pounds a year. If we did happen to get 100 homes that had 4 chickens, that would be 30,000 pounds of food a year that did not go to the dump. And I have had friends and neighbors say they would gladly donate their kitchen scraps. The main reason for me for wanting chickens, and I believe the majority of others, is to be more self-sufficient. There's, a lot happening over the last few years, and, worker shortages, supply shortages, issues with transportation. We can grow gardens, And people like me are not very good at it, but I am very good at taking care of animals. You know, I do support local farmers. I've been getting my eggs, vegetables, beef and milk from a local farmer for years. But in conclusion, you know, hens are pretty quiet compared to other, you know, to dogs, and no louder than the birds we hear of every day. Risks of disease are low, animal control issues low, and with restrictions of no more than 4 birds and keeping it so far from people's homes, I don't think it'll be much of an issue. You know, we've allowed snakes and pit bulls, and, you know, we've recently allowed and permitted folks to have, you know, 6 animals, you know, 6 dogs or 6 cats, and, you know, why can't someone just have 4 hens? You know, there's risks just like owning any animal, but hens are going to be more than just a pet to those who get them. There's a lot of time, money, and research going into them, and these animals will be feeding our family. So I think those will be getting old. We put a lot of work into making sure they're clean, healthy, and safe. So I would like to ask it to be put on a future agenda. I hope you guys have been getting emails from people. I've been asking around and mentioning it a lot. If there's any questions that I did not answer to research and bring to another meeting, I'd be happy to do so.
Any questions? Lisa?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I have 2 different questions.
Yeah.
What is the, and maybe you said this and I missed it, but the average lifespan of a hen?
I think I looked, it was about 8 to 10 years.
Okay, okay. And one of the concerns that I didn't hear you mention and that I've heard, because this has come up before, is the smell associated with having chickens. So can you address that at all?
You know, there is the ammonia smell, and it just kind of comes down to cleanliness. If you're on top of keeping your coop clean and disposing of it properly, you know, the smell is pretty contained. So, I mean, if someone lets it get out of hand, that would fall under not properly taking care of your animals. Neighbors can call, complain, you can get your chickens taken away. So.
All right, thank you.
And one thing I didn't write down was it's 8 to 10 hens makes up as much waste as 1 40-pound dog.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I have a quick-
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott.
First off, thank you. You obviously did quite a bit of research.
Thanks.
In having the conversations, did the issue of smell come up? Did you hear that? Any complaints in Fargo, Mandan, the communities that you?
No, it was just a loose chicken or neighbors wanting to check that their coop was not too close to their home.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Right, thank you so much.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council?
Can you hear me? Can the audience hear me? Because I couldn't hear hardly anything that was said in the last speech, so excuse me if I repeat. My name's Elizabeth Hopman. I live at 422 3rd Avenue Northwest in Minot with my husband Warren. Mayor Ross, council members, and audience, thank you for allowing me to speak. And I'm talking about chickens too. I'm one of the silent majority that gets up here every few years and talks. The ordinance banning keeping of live chickens in Minot was reviewed in 2017. It was a contentious issue, and the proposed change failed on a 5-2 vote. Changes since 2017 include the fact that we have the avian flu outbreak. The Agriculture Department reported in December of 2022 that 371 backyard flocks had been destroyed and 275 commercial flocks. That only includes the ones that are documented. The other change since 2017 is the cost of eggs has skyrocketed, in part because of the avian flu, but also because of the overall inflation that we're experiencing. A large number of the citizens of Minot in 2017 and now do not want to live next door to live chickens. Even from people with backyard chickens, the cons outweigh the pros 2 to 1. My main concern with regard to the cons is property values. Would I, or the majority of people that supported me when I spoke about this before, would we buy a house that had a chicken coop or chicken coops next door? My answer would be a definitive no. Chickens are noisy, they have a definite unpleasant odor, and they also create dust. Our animal wardens in Minot are already overburdened. Adding chickens to the mix would add an additional burden to them, and I have talked to some of them. Chickens can spread diseases that can spread to humans and other animals. The avian flu is one, salmonella, encephalitis, and chickens can get mites. Oftentimes when chickens get these maladies, their bedding, the dirt in their yard, and parts of the coop have to be disposed of. My question to any chicken owner would be, if your chickens are diagnosed with one of these maladies, where are those infectious materials going to go? Are they going to be dumped in a ditch out in the country? Or will they be put in our wonderful yard dumpsters that are all over town? Or will they be put in our landfill? These items are infectious to humans and other animals. Where will they be disposed? Chickens bring predators to town. Just to name a few, coyotes, skunks, foxes, raccoons. We've got a few of those things right now. The feed source for chickens, if not handled properly, attracts rats and mice. And I don't think anybody wants us to see more rats and mice in town. Chickens attract other pests, especially flies, to the chicken droppings, the chickens, the chicken bedding. In our climate here in Minot, chickens must have warm temperatures in the winter and cool temperatures in the summer. We have large extremes with our temperatures. The majority of owners would need to construct a chicken coop that would meet some type of code. They would need an electrician to do the wiring. Oftentimes what we see, if you look on the internet and search backyard chicken coop fires, you'll see people that have hooked up a myriad of extension cords. They've used heat lamps in their chicken coops and regular household fans. And the chicken coop bedding is one of the most flammable materials next to a heat lamp. There is a potential for safety issues if chickens are allowed. I also see the potential for problems with neighbors. The problems and costs of keeping chickens properly well outweigh the price of a couple dozen eggs per week. That's not my statement. It's a statement by someone who has backyard hens. You can find it on the internet under r1acrefarm.com. I believe citizens of Minot are entitled to a reasonable expectation that living in the city, they won't be living next door to farm animals. I'd like to speak a little now about possibly revisiting the current ordinance. On February 6th, a gentleman spoke in front of the council, and according to the meeting minutes, he asked if a committee could be formed to look at this issue. 2 days after that, on February 8th, I came across this conversation on social media site Next Door Neighborhood. The gentleman that asked about chickens on the 6th said, I formally asked the council last night to revisit this, and they said they would. Specifically, Carrie Evans, who led the successful effort to repeal the pit bull ban. A lady then chimes in and says, do you know when a decision will be made? The gentleman then responded, "Carrie said she isn't even going to have a committee formed. She's just going to convince the ones she needs and call for a vote." I copied and pasted this information and sent it to all the council members and the mayor, and I heard back from a few. But I went back into that social media site a couple days later, and this conversation I could not find. However, when I did read it, I saved a PDF file that's dated, and it has the names and the conversation intact. Citizens of Minot are entitled to fair representation on important issues that affect property values and the enjoyment of their own property. I don't believe that this conversation that I've just shared with you is a good example of fair representation. Any changes to this ordinance should receive the time and media attention it needs, and it should hear the voices of the people that do not want to live next to chickens. Thank you for allowing me to share. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yep.
So you did send me that email, but you didn't say what I responded
Pardon
with.
me?
So she made these same accusations that I had the secret way to pass it. And as I said,
Excuse me, I'm having trouble hearing you.
I can't help that.
Well, can I come?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
And I responded, state law requires any change to city ordinances to have 2 readings at 2 separate meetings. And I provided you the section of the Century Code.
Yes.
Any efforts I make on this or any other issues adheres to this process. Thus, the answer to your question, is this the proper way to change ordinances that should receive input from concerned citizens, is yes, indeed it is. Any member of the public is encouraged to stay apprised of our agenda and attend meetings and voice their opinions.
Okay, and that's fine, but this conversation indicated to me, and if you want to...
Social media is not a reputable source of information. This is an email you got back from me that is a public record. If you're going to start like following social media as the truth, then we have some problems.
I was disillusioned and disappointed when I saw the comments from the gentleman that asked about chickens. And I have no idea. I don't know if you said this to him. Maybe he does. But that is what he said. And that disturbed me because I do.
And you emailed me and I responded to you with the actual facts.
Exactly.
Yet you're still here saying the same thing.
You did not address that conversation. You gave me a list of how ordinances are worked.
Right, and I said any effort I make will have 2 readings. It will not be behind, it's not by state law allowed.
Okay.
So here you are again saying that there's not going to be an adherence to the state laws of this state, and there will be. If this issue comes up, there will be 2 hearings. You will have every opportunity, as will every resident of this community, to come voice their opinions. That is the foundation of our democracy. That is how we operate up here. And so what you read on social media is not accurate, and the information I provided to you is. And so I would hope you would take that and know and trust that we will adhere to the state Century Code if we change this law.
Well, I think that's wonderful. But I have no idea what the conversation was. I'm just repeating what I saw and what concerned me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council? If not, we will move on to item number 10 on the agenda, miscellaneous and discussion items. 10.1, consider the report of the Magic Fund Screening Committee. And I believe we do have the chairman of the Magic Fund Screening Committee joining us today.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you for having me. My name is Jordan Nelson. I am the chair of the Magic Fund Screening Committee, and as far as I know, I am the only thing between you guys and supper. So I'll try to keep this brief. I apologize first off that I was unable to be here for the last meeting, but I take that you guys have all gotten my report, and I can run through it real quick here. We had just a couple meetings last year. I won't go through the specific projects. One thing I did want to get in the minutes, and at the risk of beating a topic into the ground, just because Brizelda was here and we talked about it earlier with the last request, I just wanted to echo what everybody has said about the BAF program through the South Basin Planning Council. Last year's funding that was approved for $780,000 resulted in $2.2 million of B&D grant money coming back to local business owners. It's a great deal, and the one thing I wanted to really emphasize for the public record, it's open to any business in our trade area. To what was said before, please talk with your financial institution that you deal with. If they don't want to do it, find one that does. It's a really good deal as interest rates have come up. Money's not cheap anymore. This is a good way to get the cost of funds down to a lower level. I guess the rest of the report is fairly self-explanatory. I know there was an allusion to some questions at the last meeting. I guess I'd stand for those now if anybody has anything.
Any questions? Carrie?
So I don't know if it's you or Mr. Lakefield. So tell me the process. So we had, and it's not specific to a particular organization the loan was given to. So the loan is given under certain conditions and stuff, and let's say my company changes, something fundamentally changes. Is there an opportunity then for a renegotiation for that company? And I think Mr. Lakefield can answer that too if you're unclear. Has that happened before? Like, I'm just, here we have a entity that for 2 years in a row has fallen short. So just wondering if there's opportunities to renegotiate, or is this entity just going to be, fined every year until the contract's over?
Sure, and I think that's part of the business or the agreement that's signed between the city and the borrower.
Okay.
But we don't really do a whole lot with the compliance side of it. That's that engagement that Brady Martz undertook is between is with the city. So,
Okay.
Mr. Lakefield, I'll let you speak on that.
Thank you, Jordan.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that is correct. Our office engages a consulting firm to do the compliance for these agreements every year, and they follow what's spelled out in the terms of the business incentive agreements that we have with these organizations. Now, if something were to happen, those organizations could make a request to the city council to reconsider that, but there are a number of factors that come into play with each one of these agreements, and each one of them is somewhat unique as well.
Have we, in the history of the Magic Fund, done renegotiation or changed the conditions when appropriate?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't know that we have gone and changed somewhat after the fact. We are currently amending an agreement right now. We have been involved in litigation with companies that have utilized these funding opportunities. So it's kind of been all over across the gamut there.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was my only question, Jordan, was,
Sure, and I guess the one thing, and at the risk of over-speaking, I did check and make sure in this instance the recipient that had to pay money back has made that payment. I would think that any amendment would start with them bringing that up. That payment's triggered automatically by their incentive or their business agreement that they have with the city. So, I'm sure there's a process for that and whatnot. I guess two high-level things I would, just say for this year that I would hope that our committee will stay on top of, and ultimately, you guys will have to stay on top of as well. Unless you don't watch the news, we're seeing some pretty significant changes to our economic condition nationally. Now, locally, maybe we're going to be insulated from it. I hope we are. But we could theoretically run into a scenario where certain companies may have a tougher time complying. And that's something that we're going to have to stay on top of as a group, as a city as well. And then, second off, we do not yet have, it's the last thing I had in my report, we're going to have updated guidelines at some point here soon. It's going to be behoove us as a group, and maybe, I know I've spoke with you, Mayor Ross, on it, to get a good understanding of those guidelines quickly and make sure that we get the right kinds of projects through. Obviously, we know of, to what the finance director just spoke of, litigation, things like that. I don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. I don't want to see requests come that we end up having to go that way. We want to make sure that we are looking at requests that are going to be the best possible benefit to the city and the best possible and best stewarded use of the tax dollars that are afforded to us. That's all I have. If anybody else has any questions, please let me know.
Any questions? Paul?
Just one. Thank you, Mayor. Jordan, you still work at People's State Bank?
I do.
Still waiting for a call back. Just want to let you know.
From?
A message, a phone call from back in, I think, November of last year. So.
Oh, and I think I did call you back on your cell. I was somewhere between Devil's Lake and Lakota at the time. I very specifically do remember that. I was on my way to Fargo for a conference, but I can certainly call you tomorrow.
I'll be waiting.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, and thank you for your leadership on this committee. I mean, it's not paid and it's volunteer, and you guys do a lot of good work for our community and our economic development.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Before you go on to the next
Yes.
item, I just wanted to bring up something under miscellaneous. I was not physically at our meeting 2 weeks ago. I was on the Teams meeting, so I was part of the vote. But part of the discussion that happened there, and then part of the discussion that's happening tonight is bringing me back to some meetings that some of the veteran members on the city council have been part of. I'm one of the 3 veteran members up here. And in the last 7-8 years, we have spent an extensive amount of time looking at liquor ordinances, looking at strip club ordinances, looking at animal/chicken ordinances. People have had opinions. We've opened up several meetings to hear what their preferences are. And I'm not making these comments to say that we can't ever look at them again, because I think it is important that we do look at them on a timely basis. But I think it's also important to note that many of those opinions have not changed over the last 6 or 7 years. And so if we are going to open up discussion on these ordinances, I kind of anticipate that we're going to have the same response. It's fine to look at them again, but I think we do need to remember that the opportunities have been given, and we've been looking at some very small, unique situations that have kind of risen the discussion of looking at the whole ordinance again. And I'm just a little hesitant to do that. And I think if we are going to do that, it should be, as the city manager had recommended, that we look at it very comprehensively. We take our time, we make the right decisions. Because if we start making decisions based on one situation, I think we're going to get ourselves into trouble. So thank you for allowing me to share my comments.
Thank you, Lisa. Paul?
Actually, I don't want to respond to that. I think it's a healthy thing to look at these, even if it does come up sooner than we think. I think there was a decision made by this body to allow free parking in a parking structure, and 2 weeks later, the decision was changed because maybe a mistake was made, or opinions were changed, or more information came to light, or more people weighed in. So I think it's healthy. I don't think it's a bad thing to look at these and I don't ever want to predetermine what an outcome will be or what a vote will be by this body, because just as I've grown as a human being and as an individual, my mind has changed on many topics over the years, and sometimes it hasn't. So again, I think it's healthy. I think it's a good thing to look at these things, and we have some senior members and we have some not so senior members. We have some senior staff and we have some not so senior staff that'll be a part of these decisions and a part of these relooks and our community changes. We have people that come into our community from outside of the state, outside of the country, that may bring a different opinion. So again, I just want to make sure that we are open to looking at things, and if people from the community want us to look at things or want us to take up issues, that we do our best and our due diligence to hear them out, and we don't just dismiss them and say, we already talked about that. I don't think that's a healthy way to look at things. So again, just want those to be on the record as well.
Thank you, Paul. Anything else? If not, let's move on to item number 11 on the agenda, and that's liaison reports. Let's start with Scott.
I don't, sorry, what the heck, you? Little warning, Tom, geez. The City Benefits Committee meeting has continued to meet, had pretty big topic last week around PTO. And I know that conversation continues, and Harold's been reaching out to some different people. I think that's the only committee I've had.
Thank you, Scott. Mark?
That committee will be meeting tomorrow here in this room at 4:30, and the agenda is our consultant Gallagher. They're going to be talking about the methodology for our pay plan.
Okay.
For a what? Pay plan.
Pay plan.
Thank you. Visit Minded and Tourism Recovery and Resiliency Fund Committee we had that meeting last week. Again, busy summer of and beyond of events that the city's able to help through the Tourism Recovery and Resiliency Fund, help support, as well as Visit Minot helping coordinate those events and working towards what we talked about at Visit Minot's last presentation of a sports commission body to help carry some of those events forward in perpetuity. Providing input into city lodging tax ordinance, just to give some eyes on it from the Visit Minot board. We talked about that, had a good discussion at our last meeting, just to give some feedback to city finance director and city staff. That's what I have for committee meetings. Point of privilege here, I just wanted to, he should be watching, happy last day of being 5 to my son Holland, and happy early birthday to Hollywood, so I'll be home soon.
Couple of great weekends we had, tourism weekends this last month.
Absolutely.
Incredible amount of people in town. Carrie?
Nothing. I mean, the city manager mentioned I'm on the library board, so Director Anderson will be leaving the library. We are thankful for her service, but sad. Barely had a vote to accept her letter of resignation. The board president, Mark Lyman, and the board has approved a hiring plan and timeline, and we'll be hiring an interim director while that hiring process is going on. So thank you, Janet, for all of your work and for making Minot's Library just a treasure for this community. And yeah, they're not leaving, but you're leaving, and so we love our library and everything that you have helped make it. Thank you.
Lisa?
I think I brought this up prior to the first meeting, but we're having another meeting tomorrow. It's the lean process meeting that is looking at the facility. It's a facility survey process for the Minot Police Department. And so EAPC is hosting those meetings with police department staff and other city staff. And we're meeting again to find out what the future of this building is, whether it will be something that can accommodate the police department or if we need to look at something else. So that's been interesting, and the next meeting is tomorrow. Along with you, Mayor Ross, I had the opportunity to tour the post office, and then sit as part of a roundtable discussion with Senator Hoeven. And it was related to getting more information about the processes at the post office, and to maybe answer some questions about some mail deliveries. I think Senator Hoeven asked some very pointed questions and got some good information. I think the message that I want to share with everyone that came from the USPS management is that if there are concerns with mail delivery, that customers should go onto their website and file a complaint. That is the best way to communicate with the USPS. I know that I've been recommending that people do that. There's been mixed reviews on that. If you also have other concerns, you can contact Senator Hoeven's office. I know people have reached out to me, and as much as I would like to listen, I try, we have no authority over USPS, and so it's best to contact them directly. And then today had the opportunity to sit in on some engineering firm interviews for the 16th Street reconstruction. So Lance will bring information to us at a future meeting regarding that meeting. So that's everything. Thank you.
Steve?
Thanks. The Commission on Aging met last Friday, and we're all getting ready to do the Meals on Wheels public campaign this coming Thursday, where various people in the community are asked to participate and help deliver meals. We're resuming that after the COVID problem, and so I'm really looking forward to going out. It's very interesting to meet people who actually are the recipients of these services and see how grateful they are and how good it is to see them getting good nutrition. Last week we served approximately 330 meals at our downtown facility face-to-face, and over 800 in the region surrounding Minot. So it's a lot of senior citizens who are being helped to have good nutrition and have social contact and have someone check in on them. I think, again, a very important but often overlooked and unappreciated or underappreciated service that the city helps provide. I also serve on the Emergency Resources Council. We had our meeting the first Thursday of this month, as we typically do, and the session was a very technical one, looking at paperwork that needs to be kept if an emergency operations center is set up. You set up a framework, you set up a structure, and you hope you never have to use it, but it's important that the use of public resources and funds be accounted for if that eventuality happens. I also went to the quarterly meeting of the 911 committee that helps supervise and coordinate our central dispatch. For the information of the public, we have a $2.9 million budget every year. When some new staff are trained up, we will have 16 full-time dispatchers and also an assistant director for the facility, which will help out in terms of staff development and coverage. We've spent this year $15,000, or have budgeted this year $15,000 to replace street signs in the outlying areas of Minot. These are ones that are shot up or run over or sometimes lose their reflectivity. But to make sure that emergency responders can reach people in the rural areas, we have to put up signs to designate 911 addresses, and that costs about $15,000 a year. In terms of calls, in the first 2 months of this year, the Central Dispatch received over 10,000 law enforcement calls, over 900 fire calls, and over 1,700 emergency medical services calls. So a lot of people get into trouble and they call 911, and our Central Dispatch handles that in an efficient and effective manner. Again, a very important service that we provide citizens and that sometimes people aren't quite aware of. Let's see, and then I was also at the monthly meeting of the Ward County Planning Commission, where Carrie and I represent the City Council, and in addition to routine work of approving subdivisions and exemptions for, not exemptions, excuse me, conditional use permits, we have been struggling with this chart of figuring out what sorts of uses are allowed, are prohibited, or should be prohibited, and should be allowed on a conditional basis within various zones in the county. And we're going through this line by line, column by column, and it's taking a long time, but we are coming up with a consensus in terms of what kind of development we want to see in different parts of the county. And hopefully we'll be done with this within the next half year or year. Originally, we were hoping that we would be done and ready to present the product to the public in early spring or late winter. Obviously, we're not going to get there, but it's interesting talking about some very fundamental issues of politics and government, what you can do with your property and how we want the county to grow. As I've said before, the last time we did this was around 1960, so it is an important process. There's an important document we'll eventually come up with, and the plan is to share it through several meetings throughout the county with everyone and gather their input. So again, one of those not very exciting things, but it really does make a big difference in how the county grows. So that's it.
Thank you, Steve. Most of my liaison report was included in the mayor's report. I want to take a point of personal privilege too and throw out a shout out to Minot basketball player Derek Doucette, unanimous choice for Mr. Basketball. If you know the kid, you know he's an outstanding individual and he's got a great future ahead of him. So Derek, way to go. And also, just finally, we are, I think we're finally on the countdown. We've got maybe 3 meetings left in this room, maybe less. So before we move to new City Hall. Wow. So, I mean, yeah. So it's kind of, keep that in mind as well. So anyway, nothing else. We can move on to adjournment.
So moved.
Moved by Paul, second.
Second.
Second by Lisa. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, we are adjourned.